Hey Steve, I am so happy to be chatting with you today, and I want to welcome our viewers. We are really lucky to have you on today on our Transform On Demand program because we're interviewing really cool people in a very casual format, as we can see here. But we want to have some serious conversations, so to speak, on all this really exciting and relatively serious transformation happening in HR. So I want to give people a little bit about you, and then we'll chat about a whole bunch of really cool things. But Steve Boese is with me today. He is, in terms of transformers, we like to use that term with an HR at the end. I would say, Steve, you're Optimus Prime in this position.
Oh, that's clever. Well done. Yes.
Excellent. So you are, and I'm reading for the page, so I don't mess it up because you got such a great, amazing.
Yes, make sure you get it all correctly.
Yeah, I know it's tiring just looking at it sometimes because I can't imagine how you do it all. But you're co-chairing HR Tech, which just is, we'll just say, in the largest gathering of tech gurus in our HR industry. You are the editor of the technology editor at LRP Publications, which is HR Resource Executive, amongst others. And as if you have some free time, you also do HR Happy Hour, which, even though that this is not happy hour per se, I hope people enjoy this as happy.
Not yet, no.
Yeah. And you speak and you blog just, because you have nothing else to do, but you're all over the place, and we are so happy to have you today. So thank you again.
Well, yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, first question on Inquiry Minds, right? You came out of the trenches as an HR person and as a practitioner, and I am just fascinated. I know everyone always probably asks you this question too, but like, how did you make the transition from HR practitioner to the HR tech go-to guy, and kind of, not just how, but what stimulated that for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, so I've done a number of different types of jobs and had many different roles over time, like most people probably these days have had. So for me, moving into HR, I moved into HR from somewhere else even before that, right? So I started off in accounting and finance, went into IT really, and got involved in systems work, then ended up in HR doing HR systems work, and now transitioned out to a couple of other things after that. So for me anyway, and I think for many people these days, careers follow those kinds of transitions, and it's a bit about chasing some opportunity, but it's also trying to find the things you're interested in the most and you're most fascinated about. And for me, coming from the technology side, it was more about impact even back then. To me, implementing things like accounting systems and accounts payable systems and fixed assets accounting systems, which I did for a while, was fine. But I felt like in organizations, those are not the things typically, right, that drive innovation, that drive competitive differentiation, that drive value, and actually make people's lives better, hopefully, as well. But I think HR technologies have that potential. Many of them do. Certainly not all of them, but many of them do. And when I started working in HR technologies, I thought, well, this is a way to sort of marry two things that I'm really interested in, technology and sort of helping people sort of get the most out of their own careers, helping organizations meet their objectives, and sort of transforming the way people do their work. And so for me, getting into HR technology was a good fit for those reasons. And so that's kind of, I think, in a short story, how I sort of made that evolution.
Excellent. Really cool. So today, and of course you have this really unique viewpoint, being the HR tech guy and managing awards programs and all kinds of stuff. You're seeing emerging stuff, but I want to talk about the stuff that's maybe on the show floors, that you're writing about in the magazine and so forth. What are the technology trends today, the big ones, but I'm more interested in like why you see them as being so trendy.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that have happened in the last couple of years, and I think there's that old statement, right, that about technology, disruptive technology in general, right? And I wish I could remember off the top of my head who attributed this to, but it's something like this, where we overestimate the impact of technology change in the short term, and then we underestimate it in the long term, right? And I think that's really true about HR technologies and some of the changes that we see happening. So for us at the conference, certainly this year, if I had to pick one thing, it's probably about data. and data in a broad sense, and then technologies that allow organizations and enable organizations to use data in the decision-making process and in and around the wide swath of HR/talent management processes. So it could be, for example, could be in recruiting. It could be data that's using sort of a big data algorithmic approach to assessments in order to determine which are the candidates most likely to succeed in a given role. It could be on performance management, again, using similar approaches around the historical trends in organizational data to determine which performers are likely to become successful in a given role. And the flip side of that is which high performers are likely to be increased flight risks, right? Because of maybe they hadn't had a raise in a long time, or maybe they hadn't had enough training opportunities and things like that. And then and then data around some really basic processes too, like time and attendance, workforce management, Affordable Care Act compliance, solutions that apply just fantastically interesting approaches to enable organizations to leverage their data in order to make better decisions, right? And so that's probably the number one trend that's going across all of our sort of HR technology landscape. The second one probably, and you might resonate with this a little bit from some of the things you do, is user adoption / usability / user experience, right? That's become a very big and important issue in HR technologies. And by that I mean many HR technologies are meant to be used not just by HR managers or payroll managers, right, or back office people. They're meant to be used by everyone, right? They're meant to be used by every employee, every frontline manager, everyone in the organization. Right, and so what do we know about mass adoption of technology? What have we learned in the last 5 or 7 years, right, from smartphones and iPhones and Facebook and Twitter and all those things? Is people want solutions that are easy to use, are engaging. They don't need to read a manual or go to a 3-hour training course to learn how to use, and they want them to solve a problem, to fulfill a need, to meet an expectation really, really quickly, right? And so user experience and user adoption, the simplification of the sort of access points to HR technologies is another trend that we see a little bit more broadly, and sometimes it's a little like I don't think I have a session in the conference that's specifically about that topic, but when I talk to vendor after vendor after vendor and I watch 100 demos that I looked at this summer probably, I saw that as a very consistent theme across the development cycle of technologies. Putting technologies in every employee's hands that they actually want to use, right? And that's another significant trend in HR tech.
So the big question is why? Why all of a sudden? That's not something that we didn't want 5 years ago. Why now? Why is all of a sudden everyone here?
Good question. I think it's partly due to expectations at the individual worker level, right? Mm-hmm. There's been a phrase that's been around for 5-7 years now, right? It's called the consumerization of IT, right? And if you hadn't heard that phrase, what it essentially means is consumers, that's you and me, that's all of us, right, who have become accustomed to really powerful technology in our personal lives, from our smartphones and our tablets and our smart TVs and the things we interact with, and the technologies that we interact with in our personal lives that are, why is, most of the time spent on the internet is in these engaging apps, these social networks and newsreader apps and things like that. And so people have become accustomed to having these fantastic experiences that meet their needs on a technology basis in their personal lives that they're engaged with all the time. And then they go to work, and if you're telling them to log into some ancient client server or mainframe system, or go through a clunky 7-step process to get a document approved or a transaction approved, and they don't like that, right? Because their expectation around technology is it's going to be better, it's going to work better, I'm going to enjoy using it. I think that's part of the reason. And I think the second part of the reason probably is a more technical reason, right? It's just the way technologies are being developed and being deployed in enterprises, right? Via software as a service model, via the cloud, whatever term you like to use, has allowed development, right, to iterate much, much faster. So if you were using an old, big enterprise accounting system or HR system that maybe got upgraded once every 3 years, or maybe it got patched, right, when things went wrong, but got upgraded and it didn't really change much. So and it took so long to implement and for a big company, because I did this for a while in my career, I know how it works. By the time you implemented XYZ technology, it was already out of date.
Right.
It was already out of date, the user interface was terrible, and you had just got it implemented. Now you're stuck with it for 3 years because you made such a huge investment in that technology, and it wasn't going to be upgraded for a very long time. That's really not the way it works anymore, right? Most software as a service companies, certainly in the HR technology space, many of them, the smaller ones, are iterating weekly even, monthly, and even the bigger ones, like your big, colossal HR vendors, they're iterating every 3 or 4 months, right? So you're getting increased functionality, increased capability, better user experiences, and you're getting all of those things faster. So I think that's the other reason why user experience is sort of on the front page of HR tech.
Awesome. Awesome. So with your crystal ball, and I know you have one in the corner there, if I look at HR from an operational perspective, kind of at a high level, right, in, say, 3 years from now, what is the fundamental thing that you see is changing, or, you know, what can we expect to say about HR 3 years, you know, looking back, we're going to go, oh, we can't believe we did it that way. You know, what
yeah, a couple things, I guess, and I think I'll just dovetail off the last two things I talked about. One is, I think, we'll look back and say, how did we make that decision without having the data before? Whether it was a hiring decision, a promotion decision, maybe even a termination decision. I'm not talking about the obvious ones where someone, you know, steals some company funds or something and you terminate that person. But, you know, those sort of HR and talent management, how we organize a team, how we build a team for the most optimal performance on a given task, combining whether it's personalities or work experiences or job styles, how we decide where to invest our training dollars, perhaps, right? In the past, right, it's been difficult to know what ROI or just added value we were getting from a given training program or set of training collateral. That's becoming more and more identifiable, and we can track that better, right? So I think that's going to be the big one. I think more and more of HR and talent management will become, you know, kind of data analysis, driving decision making based on information, based on trends, and then feeding that information, right? These systems get better with increased information, and they learn sort of from themselves. The assessment example I talked about a little bit earlier, that learns from experience. So when employees are hired largely based on their performance on these pre-screening assessments, how they actually perform on the job is fed back into the assessment loop, so the assessments then get better over time as well. So I think that's the biggest one. And then the second one, I think, again, going back to that user experience thing, and I think the trends in enterprise tech used to be, right, technology used to work differently. Technology used to start, say, in government labs and in big businesses, and then get out to smaller businesses and then get out to people, right? The first computer most of us interacted with, if you're old enough watching this to remember the first computer, you didn't live your whole life with a computer. So if you remember the first time you got a computer, it was probably either where you went to school or where you worked, right? Probably was not, oh, I bought one for my house, right? And so that's how technology used to work. Now it's a little bit different, right? Technology starts, I don't have my phone with me, but it starts on your phone, maybe in an app, and then employees are bringing that into the office, right? Yeah. Tablets, the iPads and the other tablets, they went into enterprises from people carrying them in, right? And it's the same thing that's happening with all kinds of technology. So I think what's going to start happening, you know, and we haven't quite seen it yet, but I think one of the trends we might start to see happening is sort of the breaking apart of some of the HR technology functionality into more discrete interactions like you do on your phone, right? You have apps on your phone that tend to do one thing only or two things only, and the apps that we engage with the most and we love the most, whether it's messaging or Instagram or even some of the dating sites, for example, where people just are swiping and all that, they do one or two things only and they do them really, really well. I think we're going to see some more of that in enterprise technology as well, sort of a disaggregation of capability driven out to smartphones and other mobile devices. Now, the systems themselves will still all be pulled together, or it'll be a third-party system that pulls them all together and the data is all together, but the actual interaction layers, we won't be, like in the old days when you were doing, say, an employee transaction in an HR system, you might have had to navigate through a menu that said, you know, HR transactions, my transactions, my address, put in a new address, right? Yeah, it might have clicked 17 times to get to where you want it to be. That's all going to go away. That won't happen anymore because people won't stand for it.
Amen. Well, you know, I was laughing this morning, you know, as a long-term marketing wonk myself. I'm like, you know, we're going to do this interview using Hangout technology, and the reason I like it, it's very personal, and you can see each other and all that. And I was like, you know, today already an interview on Skype or a webinar, God forbid, those are like old and archaic. But again, like what you said, you know, this kind of interaction, this, you know, FaceTime kind of stuff, yeah, it moves into business really fast, and then we just expect it. So, well put. Look, I could talk to you forever. I just, music to my ears, fantastic information, really insightful. And the good news is I get to steal you again. So I'm going to make 2 thank yous before we wrap up today's on-demand session here. One is thank you so much for today. It just was really interesting, but it's a beautiful taste of what's to come on the 16th of September. We're having you as our guest speaker at our Transform HR live event. And I want to invite anyone to join us through our website, to send us a note. We'll be happy to get you on the guest list for that or any of the future ones. We have another one in Boston on the 17th. And then future ones coming up in November. So, Steve, I'm just psyched to have you there with all the great wine and other libations we'll have on the
wine,
top.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, whatever you want, man. It's all. I'll make it happen. And top of the Google building, we got the best view in New York there, and you know, it's going to just be a really nice time with a bunch of really smart people, starting with Optimus Prime. You know, so really cool. I also want to give you a shout out about HR Tech. I know that's coming up, and I was just wondering, given all the preparation for that, you know, what's the thing that you're looking, other than having it done and being successful, of course, you know, what's the most, the thing that's really the most that you're looking forward to about HR Tech? Because I know a lot of
good question. So HR Tech Conference, hrtechconference.com. It's coming up October 7th through 10th in Las Vegas. I think for me, organizing the program, it's you know, there's some highlights, of course. We have a whole bunch of CHROs who will be speaking, a lot of business leaders speaking from companies like Google. You mentioned Google will be there to talk about their global benefits operations and how they manage global benefits around the world for their global employees. We have you know, executives from LinkedIn, from Facebook, from ConAgra, Lockheed Martin. I mean, it's on CVS, Caremark, or they changed their name recently, CVS Health. You name it, right? So I'm excited just to see it all come together. You know, just like any other project. I've been working on this essentially since January, right? So when you're working on one thing more or less for you know, 3/4 of a year, I just want to see it all come together. Yeah, and I'll be happy with a little bit when it's over. But great lineup, great set of speakers, 3 days, huge expo hall, 300 vendors, sold out. So if you're in the market for HR technology, no matter what it is, you can come and learn more and meet with solution providers of any kind. And meet me too. If you show up, say hi to me. I'll be around.
Yeah, well, now everyone knows what you look like. It's really cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put up, I don't know if it's showing because I can't see it from my side, but needless to say, I'm going to put your contact information up for sure, and invite anyone who wants to reach out directly to you or through us at PeopleDoc. And again, Steve, thank you, like beyond thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's fun. I know I need a better background, I think, though. That's my next step.
You mean the physical background? You know what, man? You got the content. You got the. That's what we're here for. We don't care what your walls look like.
I've got to get a plant or something.
Hey, you know, I think I'm going to have to make that happen for you. Needless to say, have a super day. Happy Friday, man. Yahoo! And thanks again. I'll see you in New York.
Thank you very much.